Hello, guys, and welcome to the Rangers Review pre-match briefing ahead of Rangers versus Copenhagen. A friendly in, Chris, what I'm sure is pretty cold environment there tonight. I was out this afternoon visiting Edinburgh, and it was bollocks freezing. So I don't know what it's like tonight in Govan. I would imagine it's pretty cold.
It's a wee bit chilly, but actually not as bad as I was expecting. The forecast seems to have got the predictions of snow wrong. I expected to wake up this morning to a winter wonderland, but it's not quite unfolded. So traffic in was fine. Weather so far is okay. Hopefully there's plenty of exciting football to keep everybody warm and keep us entertained. But as we know, it's a friendly. These things not the most important fixture that Rangers will play over the course of the second half of the season. But it's nice to be back at Ibrox for my first time this year. I missed the Kelly game at the start of the year, so it's nice to be back in familiar surroundings.
And if anyone was ever wondering about the commitment of Rangers fans, I think we're going to see it tonight. You were telling me earlier when I predicted that the turnout maybe 15 to 18,000. You tell me I'm wrong.
You can maybe add another 5 to 7 on top of that. Talk of up to 25,000 tonight, which is quite remarkable. And the weather's not as bad as we expected, but it's still quite something for Rangers fans to turn out in those numbers, which, as I just said, for a game that is utterly meaningless. But when you see the Rangers fans turning out in huge numbers over the course of the years, it's perhaps no surprise. But they continue to do remarkable things in support of this side. I think it also feeds into the encouragement that they're feeling as well. They clearly feel that there's something there for Rangers in the second half of the season. I know it's a couple of weeks since that Kelly game, so I'm sure those that are here, I'm sure they'll be looking forward to it. Those that aren't here, they can tune into the channel and also the website, and they'll keep everybody fully up to speed with all the action and all the reaction.
Yeah, indeed. And guys, we've got some terrific stuff on the website at the moment, which you can subscribe to for £1 for 4 months. Josh has done a 2-part sit-down with James Tavernier that he did over in La Manga. That is an outstanding read. Probably James Tavernier, as you've never heard him before, talking about his own game. I think Josh was completely geeking out, Chris, at the prospect of sitting down and showing him videos and then talking about what they saw. Seems like Josh's hog's heaven. And then, of course, yesterday there was also a sort of in-depth piece on his leadership skills, which was also pretty interesting.
There were a lot of graphics, a lot of wee diagrams, a lot of different coloured boxes on the picture this morning. It struck me as a very Josh piece to do. But I said to him yesterday when I spoke to him, it was a really, really good interview. Nice of Rangers to set it up for us. Also, really appreciate that. But Josh made a very, very good job of it. So I would urge everyone to go and, if you're a subscriber, go read it. If you're not, make sure you go and sign up to the site and go and get a look at it. Because, as you say, Jonny, it is Tav in a different way. It's not him apologising for a big game defeat. It's not him just previewing a mundane league game. It's a very different feel, a very different vibe about the interview. I know Josh spent a lot of time on it, put a lot of it into it, and that certainly shows in the quality of both those pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, listen, let's get stuck into this lineup. Here we go. Butland in goal, Ridvan left back, continuing to be selected despite all the transfer swirl, which you have to say, it feels like it's been edging closer, inching forwards, and yet he continues to be selected by the manager. So make of that what you will. Balogun left-sided centre half, Goldson right side, Tavernier in his usual spot. Lundstrom and Raskin basically anchoring that midfield with Cantwell in front, Matondo on the left, Cosland on the right, and young Silva up front, the new signing. There he is. No Dessers there. Silva is straight in as that first pick. In terms of the bench, which isn't on this graphic, it's looking pretty strong. McCrory, McLaughlin, Suter, Jack, Dessers, Lawrence. Great to see Tom Lawrence back. Cifuentes, Scott Wright, Borna Barisic, Leon King, Fecco, Fraser, Rice, and McKinnon all on there too. So wee selection of youngsters. So there's plenty of options there for the manager as the night goes on. Chris, what do you make of that lineup?
I think that's probably your team that's going to play Easter Road in the first of games in hand next week. I think that's probably the strongest side that Rangers have available right now. Left back, obviously, debatable, but also with Barris, it's just come back with some injury. That jersey is Ridvan's until he either loses it through injury form or he's moved on. Matondo naturally gets the nod to replace Seema, who we all know is going to be a huge loss. He obviously didn't make any, I think, off the bench for Senegal yesterday, which is a bit of a blow. They also won the game, which is a bigger blow because it means they might go deep in the competition, unfortunately. But I think that's the side we're going to see. I think now the injury situation has cleared a wee bit. That looks like the strongest Rangers lineup at present until anything happens transfer wise, either in or out. So a chance for that 11 to hopefully get up to speed. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the 11 that starts on Saturday down at the Barton as well. And I think the manager also using this game to try and bed that side together after the break. Didn't really take too much from Saturday. It was very just much a getting the legs going again type of afternoon. I wouldn't read too much into it. Slightly more not at stake tonight, but slightly more informative this evening. I think the team lineup probably tells us that.
Yeah, we've got quite a few comments coming in. One from YouTube subscriber Maka. He's saying, no Sterling, Chris. What's the update there? He is not on the bench. He is not in the starting lineup. Have you heard anything in terms of scuttlebutt floating around the Ibrox press room, Chris?
No, the teams have just come out and I came straight on here, so I've not even had a chance to go and confront MD in a corridor and find out. But I will try and find out over the course of the night. I'm assuming it's just a fitness decision. So hopefully it's not a serious one, because we all know the Rangers' injury situation has not been good over the last wee while, and Sterling has been very impressive in the games he's played recently. So hopefully it's not a bad one. If it is a knock and it keeps him out tonight, then so be it. Even if it keeps him out on Saturday, it's not a disaster. Having him back for that Hibs game next week would certainly be a booster.
Yeah, and CGM 55 also mentioning that Kieran Dowell's not in that lineup nor the bench, so that's another interesting one. We know that he was held up with a personal issue ahead of the training camp in La Manga, but he arrived there, I think, on the third day or the second day, and was able to train and was fine and dandy. So interesting that he's not there as well. Hopefully nothing there, because you just don't want to see Rangers get any more injuries. There isn't simply too many options for Philippe Clement even now. So it's definitely something that you don't want to see. So just in terms of the lineup, Chris, I mean, Silva's obviously come in and it's clearly been brought in to play. This is not a guy who's going to be eased into action, allowed to find his feet slowly in Scottish football. This is a guy with a level of talent that saw £35 million change hands for his signature. So it's clear Philippe Clement sees him as the go-to guy, and he's going to start, I think, already. Would you agree with that?
I think so. He has to start. He's obviously the only signing of the window so far. I would be surprised if Rangers do a deal for a player who has gone for a higher transfer fee over the course of his career over the next couple of weeks. So he's going to be the high-profile acquisition of this window. I think the manager has said that he will come in and he'll play number 9. It's an area of the pitch that Rangers clearly needed reinforcements in. I would still like to see another one coming in that area. Having Silva, I think, is a really good, smart bit of business from Rangers. But we know the situation with Danilo. We know the situation with Kamal Roof. Dessers can't be relied upon. In terms of games, he can be. He's been fairly robust. In terms of goals, no, we all know that he can't be. So I think there's a bit of pressure on Silva to come in, hit the ground running. He's not going to get 3 months to get himself up to speed, because the next 2-3 months of the season define how it ends potentially for Rangers. European, Scottish Cup, Premiership games are huge. It's a really, really important run. I think it's 15 games in just under 58 or 60 days. Rangers have got coming up, so there's a lot at stake in a short space of time. Silva has to deliver. He's not going to get weeks and weeks to find his feet. And I think if you look at his pedigree, you look at the clubs he's played for, the leagues that he's played in, the goals that he has scored, he should be the kind of guy that can come in and adapt to Scottish football fairly easily. That's not to say he'll find it a walk in the park, because high-profile players have come in and struggled here before. But I think there's a real expectation on Silva, and the manager's clearly put his faith in him early on.
Yeah, I don't think you go and get a guy from Wolves who's gone for that kind of money and pay the kind of salary that I'm sure they're paying him unless he's going to play. Listen, Chris, one of the things that we would find impossible to have caught up on, but a couple of people are actually saying in the pre-match interview that's been put out on Rangers social media channels, Kieran Dowell is apparently out for a few weeks with an injury, and Sterling has a small knock and it needs to be assessed. So there is some injury problems there, which is certainly not good news. And yet more confirmation of this lack of robustness that seems to be running through this Rangers squad. They just can't seem to catch a break. And I think something the manager will be, well, if he had any hair, he'd be tearing it out over. Now, I'm not one to talk about hair with my slightly receding hairline that I'm covering up with cleverly combed forward hair. But I mean, it must be a frustration. It must be an internal, and it's something internally they're looking at with a little bit of detail, because I know it's something that you've kind of been looking at, and it is quite frightening if you look at it over a longer period. There's a real pattern there, isn't there?
It is, and it's something that whether Rangers are going to be successful this season or not, going forward, it's something that has to be addressed. It's not sustainable, both in football terms or in financial terms. Rangers simply cannot afford to have this number of players out injured. It's not good for the individuals, but it's certainly not good for the collective. It's actually quite something that Rangers have managed to get to this stage of the season still with as much to play for, because the injuries could easily have crippled the campaign. I think the arrival of Clement came at just the right time. He was able to put a bit of confidence back in the squad, put a bit of belief back in the support, and have managed to get through this hectic run of fixtures, managed to get to the break. They now need reinforcement in certain areas, but they really need players to be more robust, to be available more often than not. You look at the guys like a Goldson, Tavernier especially. I think he's missed 4 minutes or so of league action this season. His numbers over the course, not just of this year, numbers over the course of his Rangers career are remarkable in terms of appearances. If only they had another even half a dozen like him who you just rely on to churn out the games, to churn out the performances at a certain standard. So Tav really sets the standard in that regard, and Rangers need more like him, because it's not sustainable for a team that's going to challenge across 4 fronts as we are. You can't afford to have that many players out injured. So hopefully it is something that the manager can address short term, just to get us to the end of the season, and then certainly longer term, we know that it's something he's definitely looking at. He's spoken about it a few times. I actually asked him a few weeks ago if he knew what the problem was, and if he'd been surprised at the level of conditioning and fitness of some players. He also didn't want to answer it, but I think it's obviously something that the club will be addressing, and the club certainly have to look at, because, as we say, it's not a healthy position for the individuals, and certainly not for the team and for the club.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Josh's interview that he did out in La Manga with Connor Goldson sort of said, we've been needing someone to say, you do it, almost like an autocrat who says, this is the stuff that we need to do, and you do it. I wonder if perhaps under Gio, a guy who's been surrounded by the absolute elite players through his career, if perhaps it just wasn't his style to be dealing with the naughty schoolboy almost, and being like, you do this, you do this, you do this. And then Michael Beale, maybe similarly, but clearly, the fact that Rangers have a cryo chamber in the building tells you at one point at the club that was thought to be a really, really important thing, because these are not cheap. Not every club has them. And then it's obviously just fallen out of fashion within the dressing room to use it, and perhaps speaks volumes about a slight malaise in terms of the really highest standards in terms of fitness. But it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this is addressed over the next year or so, Chris, because without a doubt, this is costing trophies, and it has cost trophies. You think about the amount of talent. We were at We were at an event where I think that the chairman said that it was £23 million had been sitting on the bench, sitting in the stands, as it were, in terms of injuries in a previous season. So there's no doubt that there's been an issue over the long term that needs to be resolved. And with this news coming in, and various people saying various things, Chris, some people in the comments saying that it's more serious from what the manager said. Some people saying it's a matter of weeks. I'll obviously need to hear, and you'll need to hear the comments yourself to kind of to know exactly what was said. But it certainly seems like more injury problems and more difficulties with two players who I think who have been pretty good until recently. It certainly sounds like Dowell is the more serious of the two from the majority of comments that have been coming in. That'll be something that I think many people will be lamenting, because one thing Kieran Dowell, there's no doubt that he's not played too often, but he's hit the net, you know. He's scored a couple of goals, and he's not played an awful lot. He's got a threat in there. And that's something that you cannot buy really nowadays. It's very, very difficult to get players that are going to grab you maybe 8 or 12 goals from midfield. And I don't think Kieran Dowell, if he was playing every season, every game would have any problem in hitting that level.
I think he's someone who, if he was fit, he would certainly have a part to play, because obviously I know Raskin just been back, also Ryan Jack, good to see him back in the squad, Tom Lawrence just back in the squad. It's going to take time for these midfield options to get themselves back up to speed, to really kind of find their feet again. Dowell, having played a couple of games before the break, should have been in a slightly better place than those ones. So another sore one for him, but it's almost been the story of his Rangers career so far. He just really can't seem to get going, unfortunately.
Yeah, and a day in the life sums it up by saying, let's hope Tom Lawrence stays fit now. That'll be absolutely massive for Rangers. I've no doubt that Tom Lawrence, fully fit and firing and full of confidence, is a really, really effective player for Rangers over the course of a season. So let's hope that he can get himself to a place where he can be robust and hang about this squad. He's not had a lot of injury problems prior to arriving at Rangers. This one, I don't put any of the blame on the kind of the transfer section of the club, because you didn't look at Tom Lawrence's background and think, here's the guy who's not be able to hack it in a physical league. You know, he was performing in the Championship season in, season out for quite a long time, and hadn't had any really, really significant injuries over the course of his career. Obviously, like any player, he had the odd one, but he wasn't someone like Aaron Ramsey, who was coming in and you were going, well, there's a background there that's a bit concerning. So, yeah, let's hope that Tom Lawrence can get back in and show what he can do. Chris, I'm going to let you go. I think you've got food to go and eat there. Have you had your dinner yet?
I had something before I came out, so I've not actually sampled the press room purvey yet this evening. But I might save myself for a half-time pie and a cup of tea instead. Just something to keep us warm to get me through the second half.
Indeed. Just make sure you get yourself a cup of coffee out there on that press box, because I'm sure it will be pretty cold. Right, okay, guys, well, we'll be back later on after the game. We're going to have a wee chat. Once the manager's been in, once we're aware of all the situations that have come from the game, and we can assess what's been happening then. So until then, thanks very much for watching. And obviously, Chris's post-match analysis, instant analysis, will be on the website too. Until then, thanks for watching and enjoy the game.